Hello and welcome to another standard video. Today we're checking out this blue, red and green or Temur colored copy combo deck that's centered around Temur Battlecrier, a new 3 mana 4/3 saying during our turn, spells we cast get a 1 mana discount for each creature we control with power 4 or greater. So by itself, the Battlecrier already discounts all our spells by 1, but the more 4-powered creatures we have in play, the better. And the Battlecrier pairs very nicely alongside Outcaster, Trailblazer. This 3 mana 4/2 when it enters makes a mana of any color, and whenever another creature with power 4 or greater enters, we get to draw a card. Can also plot it to maybe save up that 1 mana on a future turn to help us ramp, or to play around removal, so we can hopefully combo off in one big turn. Since this deck is all about critical mass, assembling enough of these 4-powered creatures and making enough mana to then be able to combo off in one turn, especially with the Trailblazer, since we've got a bunch of these clone effects. We've got on the one hand Naga Fleshcrafter, a 4-mana creature, enters as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, so it can also copy opposing creatures, but for the most part we're planning to copy our own creatures such as the Battlecrier, because with just 2 Battlecriers on the battlefield all our spells get a 4-mana discount, and that's only going to keep increasing, and copying Trailblazer is great too, as we get to draw even more cards with the ability. And the Fleshcrafter also has a renew ability, so we can maybe activate it out of the graveyard, and that's another way to turn all our creatures into Trailblazers or Battlecriers for the turn, so that can also be very fun. Then we also have 3 steps ahead, which is quite flexible, can use it as a counter spell, but it's also 4 mana to create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature we control, so that can also be discounted by the Battlecrier, maybe also letting us draw 2 cards and discard in the process. Now do keep in mind the Battlecrier's ability only applies in our turn, so we wouldn't be able to discount 3 steps in the opponent's turn to counter and use a bunch of other abilities, unless we keep the mana up for it. And then last but not least, there's a Rite of Replication, and this is the real finisher of choice, as we get to maybe kick it for 9 mana total normally, but with enough Battlecriers and 4-powered creatures, we could maybe discount it down to just double blue, and then we get to create a token that's a copy of target creature, and if it's kicked, we get to create 5 of those tokens instead. So you can imagine the amount of triggers we get if we copy a Trailblazer with it. And then another great finisher for this deck is Dragonhawk, as it also scales with the number of 4-powered creatures we control, exiling cards from the top of our deck, dealing 2 damage for each unused card, so that can also help close out the game with enough 4-powered creatures on the battlefield. And then to round things out, we also have some cheap interaction with Burst Lightning, which also benefits from the discount from Battlecrier, as we can easily kick it to deal 4 damage. Then we've got some cheap mana acceleration with Llanowar Elves, can set up some of our 3-drops on turn 2. The Heirloom can also maybe draw us extra cards with our 4-powered creatures, can still tap to make mana for our creature spells. And the Wild Guide with Offspring can also be cast for just a single green, still making the additional token with a big enough discount in play, and can also eventually reach 4 power if we put enough +1 counters on it, so there's a little bit of synergy throughout. And then I'm also playing 2 copies of the legendary Tyrox, just a 2 mana 4/1 and no abilities, but good enough to enable some of our other 3-drops in the deck. Then the mana base is a little sketchy since we're trying to play a 3-color deck that still wants to curve out with turn 1 Llanowar Elves, so we are running Fabled Passage, 2 of each basic, and then a mix of fast lands, pain lands, and then the Verge land, which we also need to enable by having an island or mountain on the battlefield, since we do want to have double blue to cast some of our non-creature spells, such as Rite and 3 steps, so having enough blue mana is also important. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play with a promising hand. Elves plot Trailblazer on 2. Try and chain those together. Facing blue-red. And a talent. And there's a Rite of Replication, also quite exciting. I could cast Trailblazer, make a red, immediately burst the Otter. There are of course scarier creatures they could play, like a Slickshot. So I think I still just plot the Trailblazer for now. And then we're also more likely to draw some cards off of it. Otter attacks. They've got the Monstrous Rage. Anything else? Just 5 damage. Okay. If I play Trailblazer, we get a mana. Can cast another one. See where that takes us. Find a wild guide. So we can already cast a wild guide, and then I'll burst lightning the otter. Doesn't seem like they have any instants in hand. And then with the wild guide, the plan is to eventually kick a Rite, which is 9 mana. Maybe I'm better off casting it with Offspring next turn, so we get closer to that goal. They will burst lightning one Trailblazer, sadly. Hopefully we get to keep the second one for a couple turns. So we'll be attacking and casting Wild Guide. Opponent with 4 mana. And looks like they have a different answer for Trailblazer, another Burst Lightning. Alright, so now we don't have a very exciting Rite of Replication target. And a Hearth Elemental. Okay, Battlecrier's not bad. Makes it a lot easier to kick the Rite. Should probably just activate this now, in case they have more Burst Lightnings. Opponent's gonna stock up. So at this point, 3 steps ahead is a good draw too, with the Battlecrier in play. Found a land. Well, I can definitely cast a kicked Rite now. Just copy the Battlecrier a whole bunch. What if I copy the Hearth Elemental? Then, yeah, it doesn't do anything, it's just a 4/5. Yeah, I think I would rather just replicate the Battlecrier, and then we get to pretty much cast all our spells for free going forward. Opponent plots a Slick Shot. That could still kill me in the air. Although we're also attacking for a lot of damage on the ground, to be fair. Another Sleight of Hand. So block 1 Battlecrier, take at least 20. So we should have it here. Would have been even more fun had we copied a Trailblazer and drawn a million cards. But you can't have it all. Another Elemental, so 2 blockers, still not going to make a difference. And our opponent scoops it up, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a promising hand. Elves can plot Trailblazer on 2 already. If it gets removed, we still have a backup plan with Heirloom. Opponent's got a Gorehound, so this is a Raise the Past combo deck. So I don't expect a ton of removal, which is good. For now, I could also cast Trailblazer, immediately burst the Gorehound so we can draw off Heirloom next turn. Actually sounds fine. Because yeah, I'm not expecting any removal on Trailblazer, so it's likely to stick around. I may have to use Heirloom to fix for red on Tyrox. But there's a chance I can attack and then trample, draw card. Since they have 2 more 1-drops, now they could double block. And yeah, if they're on the Raise the Past plan, they may not care about trading off their creatures, whereas we would like to preserve the Trailblazer. Still an interesting decision here. Start by playing Tyrox, draw cards, see what we pick up. Dragonhawk. Alright, I'm kind of down to just play Heirloom and pass. Then next turn I get to draw a card and trigger Dragonhawk with 3 4-powered creatures in play, versus attack, opponent double blocks, we trade, I guess I still draw a card. And then I can still cast Dragonhawk next turn. Yeah, you know what, maybe that's fine. There's also a good chance they just take it. Alright, was overthinking it. And a Battlecrier could be a nice addition as well. A little bit short on red mana for it, perhaps. So drawing another red source would be the best case scenario, because then we should be able to play Battlecrier and Dragonhawk. Helpful Hunter draws a card. So yeah, we're probably done attacking on the ground now. Ooh, there we go. Fetch Mountain. Play Battlecrier, making sure to leave double red. And draw a card. Tyrox is legendary, sadly. Cast Dragonhawk. A draw. Exile top 4, that's 8 damage at the very least. But it's probably worth it to Offspring the Wild Guide. Could even play Heirloom and then still Offspring it. Yeah, that's the power of the Temur Battlecrier with Offspring and with cards like the 3 steps with Spree. No attacks. Still 4 damage. And then next turn, Rite of Replication. Can start dreaming about copying the Trailblazer. Gonna draw a lot of cards. But then Dragonhawk can close out the game by just attacking. Yeah, this seems like a favorable matchup. Opponent doesn't have a ton of disruption for our deck. And we kind of get to just do our thing, which, when it works, is incredibly powerful. So with Kicker, target Trailblazer, that works. Draw a lot of cards, since all the Trailblazers see each other enter the battlefield. So we're going to be close to running out of cards here. And yeah, our opponent has seen enough. After we're done drawing, we still get to attack with the Dragonhawk, which then represents whatever cards are left in the deck times 2 damage, so that's still probably enough to close out the game. Can also cast Kick Burst Lightnings with all the floating mana from Trailblazer, so that's 4 damage each as well. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have a bit of a clunky hand, but double Trailblazer, can ramp it out with Heirloom. Just fetch Forests. Then we won't have blue mana right away. But we can still Burst Lightning. Opponent green-white with an Elves. Could decide to Burst Lightning it. Or we can deploy our own Heirloom. Alright, we've got land 3 taken care of. So slowing the opponent down might be worthwhile. Could just cast Trailblazer with the red mana, play another Burst Lightning. There's a Loam Speaker, so this is likely a green-white cage deck we're up against. Rite is nice. Yeah, I can plot the Trailblazer, since I don't need it on the battlefield just yet. And then we just want to chain together Trailblazers, drawing cards, eventually maybe kick Rite of Replication. And there's a Gearhulk. So it's the cage version with Gearhulk, which could find some relevant interaction for 1 mana. They might get a Pixie to pick it back up. There's a lot of options. They got the Reliquary, so that can remove one of my creatures and a Recruit. So maybe I don't want to commit the Trailblazers yet, and I'll just plot another one. Sadly, we don't get to hit our land drop for a turn. But yeah, we can take a little bit of damage and then just try and combo off in 1 big turn. which is not something our opponent can necessarily do unless they get lucky off the hideaway on Cage. Alright, there it is, and they have 3 different creatures with different powers, so they can already cast their hideaway card. Could be dead if it's a Crater Hoof. Just a Liner Elves, so could have been a lot worse. Haywire Might can blow up the Heirloom. And Dragonhawk the draw. So at the very least I can go double Trailblazer into Dragonhawk, and then somewhat likely to find a land. So I can still cast like a Burst Lightning. Yeah, probably have to go for it, since I want to hit my land drops as well. And drew another Trailblazer. I don't think I'll be able to squeeze that in necessarily. Unless, let's see. I might be able to draw into a land so I can keep up 3 steps ahead for a Reliquary. That would be kind of the best case scenario. Yeah, I guess we cast another Trailblazer. I get to draw 2. Yeah, I guess that's worth it. Otherwise, we know for a fact Dragonhawk's getting exiled by the Reliquary. I found a land, but it's tapped, unfortunately. So I don't get to keep up my counterspell, but I can play Heirloom and then still play an Elves afterwards. And then I could Burst Lightning something. What makes sense? Could go for Haywire Might, so they don't blow up Heirloom. Denying a mana from Elves seems pretty irrelevant, so sure. You get an extra +1 counter. And then I could still Reliquary, get rid of 1 Trailblazer, but that doesn't feel nearly as bad as losing Dragonhawk. Toby is next. We are taking a significant amount of damage, so we pretty much need to stabilize our combo next turn. Because we don't have the best blocks in the face of Gearhulk. And with Cage they can grow it, so even a 5/5 wouldn't be able to stop it. But want to keep our Trailblazers alive if possible. Drawing a Battlecrier would be pretty strong here. Although I'm still missing double blue in my mana base to cast a 3 steps, or a Rite for that matter. Opponent will Reliquary exile Trailblazer, presumably. Alright, goes for Heirloom instead. That's fine. And draw on Elves. So yeah, it's gotta be Dragonhawk. Draw 3. Exile the top 4, so we get to see a lot of cards. Alrighty, so I can play the Verge, which only makes a red. Not as useful as maybe playing a Llanowar Elves out. Okay. No great attacks. So then next turn we need to try and line up some blocks to survive. But yeah, all their creatures trample for the most part, so that's going to be tough. We're so close to a kicked Rite on a Trailblazer to go off. Yeah, those are decent attacks. So let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I would still need an extra mana to kick Rite on Outcaster. So then what makes more sense? I guess Dragonhawk on Recruit. Block here, they pump Toby. So then I may as well double block it. They could have also used Loam Speaker to make a 3-3. Yeah, I don't love losing Dragonhawk, but given the trample, it's either this or lose all my Trailblazers. Opponent pumps the Gearhulk. And an Overlord was a leftover, explains why they didn't activate the Loam Speaker. So we're probably not beating those flyers. That being said, we drew Battlecrier. This still doesn't make blue, however. So yeah, if I cast Battlecrier, we get a 3 mana discount, so it's essentially free in a way. I could Rite of Replication, copy the opponent's Overlord. That's a decent play. I guess never mind, the Overlord's technically not a creature, so I can't even target it with the Rite, so that wouldn't work. Copying Gearhulk, get a couple 1-drops. Doesn't seem all that helpful either. We're so close to doing something great, but we're a little bit short on blue mana, among other things. I guess I could draw into a blue source with a draw of Trailblazer, so we'll start here. Fabled Passage can get an island. Okay, so now 3 steps. Copy a creature. Make a Trailblazer. That's essentially free. And adds another 4-powered creature for Battlecrier. Make more blue. So now I've got a 4 mana discount. So can we get to a kicked Rite of Replication? I think we can. Make more blue. Can cast another Trailblazer first. Make more blue. And then Rite with Kicker. I guess I have to deal with the flyers as well. Although if I copy Trailblazer, we're likely to draw into more Burst Lightnings that can then take care of the flyers. I guess I did not consider the fact that I would draw my entire deck here. Okay, well, it still feels like a win, even though we're technically losing here. So maybe the correct play would have been to copy Toby, and then make a bunch of 4/4 tokens, which will eventually gain flying, so that can stabilize. Feels a bit more exciting than just copying the 2/1 token. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with a keepable hand. Elves plot a Trailblazer, copy with Fleshcrafter, and we're off to the races. No cut down, but I know where to run, so next turn we can just go Fabled Passage plus Lanor Elves. Can fetch either mountain or island. Generally need more blue mana. Slashers quite threatening, especially if they bloodletter me. Okay, so I can plot a Trailblazer, keep the elves untapped so we at least have a chum blocker. And I know where to run, takes care of the elves. So they get to half my life total, but at least I'm not dead. Hopefully they're out of removal for Trailblazer now. But I'm not counting on it. Now I could also play a Dragonhawk after we play the Trailblazer. Seems worthwhile. The alternative of cast Trailblazer, I'm still a mana short of copying with Fleshcrafter once again. So yeah, we'll go for it. And draw, exile 2 cards, which is 4 damage, and Battlecrier was a nice pickup. Alright, so now we have 2 creatures that could trade for Slasher if needed. But I'm just gonna take the hits, I think. Now we're potentially in danger of dying to Unholy Annex. Yeah, there it is. Especially if they follow it up with a Bloodletter. But at least we get to untap with our entire board. So now what's the best I can come up with? Battlecrier. Have to be careful with the Yavimaya Coast going to 2, because then the Ritual Chamber could be game over. But yeah, Battlecrier's the more promising starting point, because then we can cast a 1-mana Trailblazer and a 1-mana Fleshcrafter. But I might lose to my own Yavimaya Coast here. My opponent had an Edict, sadly. So I lose Trailblazer. Can still cast it for 1 mana. Could also just Fleshcrafter for 2 mana. So I don't fall to 2 life. Because yeah, otherwise we're just guaranteed dead unless I win right now. Can I win right now? We're attacking for 5. I could have at least 4 4-powered creatures, so that's 8, 13. Yeah, you know what? There's a chance I can actually win here. Need to make probably green mana in case I draw another Trailblazer. Or I can just stick to blue, because then I can play Kick Burst Lightning afterwards at the very least. Copy Trailblazer. And then Kick Burst Lightning goes face. Attack. And yeah, that's enough cards in exile for this to be lethal. Sweet. Could have also tried a different line where we copy Dragonhawk to get more of the trigger, but this seemed to work out. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Yeah, this hand's got Tyrox to also enable the Battlecrier's discount, set up 3 steps, so we can do some cool things. Facing blue-white. Gonna fetch an island, so we have double blue for 3 steps as well. And then we can start with Heirloom. Moment of Truth means our opponent's on Omniscience combo. Says no to a lockdown, so they could have another one in hand already. For now, stock up. Well, we do have a counterspell for Abuela's Awakening. But our opponent is better at playing the control role. Alright, so if I play Battlecrier, could still cast a Wild Guide afterwards, if we tap carefully. And then they might lock down, but then we still have Trailblazer into Tyrox. So that seems decent. Opponent's got an Archaeologist instead. Mills Omniscience, so they're gonna leave that in the graveyard. Alright, so if I don't keep up 3 steps, I could just die next turn. So I should probably keep up 3 steps, and then for now I can either plot Trailblazer or cast it, and then with the floating mana still play Tyrox. Seems decent. So I need to use the Heirloom. Cast Trailblazer. Play a Tyrox. And Llanowar Elves. If Battlecrier attacks, it might get bounced. But that's okay. Sure. Replaying it next turn might actually benefit me, since then we get to trigger the Trailblazer again. The discount from Battlecrier also only applies in our turn, so it wouldn't help us discount 3 steps in the opponent's turn to get multiple modes. They did have a lockdown, so I think at this point I have to counter that as well, since we would lose too much otherwise. But yeah, if they've got an Abuelos left, they could combo me next turn. So let's make the most out of it. Cast Battlecrier. Probably using the Heirloom. So we leave more blue mana for 3 steps and other clone effects. They likely just have another cantrip or a Forest Dispersal in hand. So now I get a 3 mana discount, so I can 3 steps copying and drawing, or I can just pass once again with 3 steps available. So we can counter another Abuelos. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the safest play overall. Although if I copy Trailblazer, we get to see a couple more cards. But yeah, that's maybe still not worth it. And then I don't think I want to attack with Tyrox just yet. Opponent takes it. So yeah, maybe in hindsight could have used Heirloom to draw an extra card here. Another moment. Yeah, I wish the discount from Battlecrier also happened in the opponent's turn. Then we could counter and maybe make a copy of the Trailblazer at the same time. Stock up resolves. Next turn, if I get to keep up my mana, I can maybe counter and make a copy, which is what I wanted to do all along. And a Chart of Course is fine too. Alright, so our opponent's digging. They're still potentially going to be short of casting Abuelos with Counterspell backup, but I guess they haven't played land for a turn yet. So they can maybe set that up for next turn then. Make sure to add a counter. Wild Guide I can play with Offspring for just 1 mana. They could still have an Efar's Dispersal up, but we'll start by attacking this time. If I attack all out and they don't have Dispersal, opponent blocks, takes 12 damage. So we're getting close. I should maybe have a look at what they discarded so far. Let's start by attacking. And then we can activate on Battlecrier, which is better to replay than Trailblazer, since it would also draw a card if they bounce it. One falls to 8. Dragonhawk. That might be able to do some damage here. So if I cast a Dragonhawk, I can still leave 3 steps available. And I can activate Wild Guide to have another 4 powered creatures, so then we have 4 total. That's 8 damage. Can even play another Wild Guide. So I don't want to play anything from exile if I can help it. Pass a turn. And that's 8 to the face. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. I think we gotta keep this. Elves, turn to Heirloom. Plot the Trailblazer, try and copy with Rite. That's our general game plan. And a Heartfire from our opponents. Can't quite Burst Lightning it, so I guess we'll pass and then can fetch Mountain. Turn 2 can maybe go Elves plus Burst Lightning. Okay, so it's a mouse aggro deck. But playing blue instead of what's usually white. Alrighty, so yeah, probably gotta Burst Lightning the Challenger now. Play Elves. It's gonna be a Storm Chaser's Talent for starters. And a Slick Sequence, taking out the Elves, drawing a card. Pretty good. Battlecrier we can cast once we deploy the Heirloom. Let's just plot the Trailblazer for now. Can also use the mana to make blue. Play the Battlecrier, take it from there. Yeah, we definitely have the tools to do something broken, but the Prowess deck is gonna have a decent amount of removal. And that's 2 and 3 toughness. These creatures aren't particularly sturdy. Another Heartfire. And another Sleight of Hand. Well, at least the Heartfires aren't getting any additional counters yet. A land is useful. Alright, so while the opponent's tapped out, we can maybe make something happen. So Trailblazer have essentially 5 mana. Battlecrier leaves 2, and then I can still Fleshcrafter. So that should work. And then I think we copy Trailblazer, and then with the mana I can even Offspring the Wild Guide after playing Heirloom. So yeah, that's the power of this deck, just going off out of nowhere. And now with the extra mana from Wild Guide, we're close to casting a kick to Rite of Replication. So yeah, let's see what our opponent can come up with. Swift Spear into Cutter, and our opponent scoops it up. Maybe they realized they missequenced and wanted to play Cutter first. That's a shame, because yeah, next turn we would have really gone off, since we get a 3 mana discount from controlling 3 4-powered creatures. So 3 plus 6 is 9, that's just enough to cast a kicked Rite of Replication, which would have been able to copy either a Trailblazer or Battlecrier, going off either way, and then 3 steps could also copy more creatures afterwards. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, and we have a keepable hand, I think. Can fetch on 1, get a second blue source, which will then also enable the Verge. Authority out of black-white. Authority does potentially stop a combo kill from happening if we set up a big Rite of Replication, but overall we can live with it. So then could play the Elves and wait to Offspring the Wild Guide. So if the Elf survives, a Wild Guide is reasonable. Could also just plot a Trailblazer to try and set up Dragonhawk. Alright, it's going to be the Cleric, so there's a life gain combo deck. So yeah, Wild Guides sets up the most mana. Although plot Trailblazer, then next turn I can cast Dragonhawk regardless of what happens. Plus we could even Burst Lightning the Cleric here. So I think I prefer that. Can wait and see if a scarier creature shows up. Amalia. Yeah, Amalia could be worth targeting in response to any life gain triggers. I guess that's when we play our own creature. Because we will be able to block the Cleric once we deploy Dragonhawk. After we untap with it, that is. And we drew another Burst Lightning anyway. So play Trailblazer. Make a red. Play Dragonhawk. Could have waited to play my land out, but I want to make sure I keep a Burst Lightning. Which I guess I can cast it now before they drain me with a cleric. Sure. So I wouldn't be casting anything from exile. So let's see if they can answer the Dragonhawk. Just some more bats. Deep Cavern can look at the Wild Guide. But yeah, hopefully we find more goodies with Dragonhawk's attack, and now Heirloom I could also cast. Giving Dragonhawk trample in the process. If they want to double block Trailblazer, that's fine by me. Found alright, so would prefer them not blocking the Trailblazer now. Although I guess we're going to be a mana short of casting the Rite, since Sanctum Enter's tapped and Heirloom can't make mana for non-creature spells. Could still draw into an untapped land, I suppose, with the Heirloom. So that's the best case scenario. Opponent Shum's Dragonhawk will give it trample. And another tapped land. Alright, we'll play this one out. Sadly, no Rite on Trailblazer. But also wouldn't have been kicked, so would have just been the one copy. We also exiled the Battlecrier earlier, so it's getting less likely that we'll combo off with Battlecrier and Rite. Now Zoralin. Alright, so we got to see this Temur clone deck in action. Definitely among the jankier decks I've played in recent memory, so it's not going to be a competitive deck whatsoever on the rank ladder. Even in the play queue, you're probably going to lose more games than you're going to win with it, but when it goes off, it is quite spectacular. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.